is 7:25. So as millions of students sit their GCSEs, the person who oversaw the introduction of the exams says he now wants them scrapped. Former Education Secretary Lord Baker believes they are outdated and agrees with Tony Blair's son, Euan Blair, that they're not good for an indicator of future work performance.
Lord Baker, as you can see, joins us now alongside Education and Families editor for the Sunday Times, Sian Griffiths, who is going to defend them. Very good morning to you both. Well,
good morning.
Lord Baker, I can imagine there are millions of students who are about to sit a GCSE who might think this morning, well, if the guy who introduced them wants them scrapped, why am I sitting them?
Well, when I introduced them back 35 years ago, 50% of the students left school at 16. Now, you've got youngsters doing GCSEs, haven't you? Mm-hmm. None of them are going to leave school at 16. They're going on to 18. So you don't need a leaving certificate any further. When I took the predecessor back in 1950, the school certificate, 95% left school. They needed a certificate. Now, children are going on now to 18 and they're not stopping at 16. So there's no need for them.
So
we're the only country in Europe that has serious exams at 16.
Yeah.
There should be continuous assessment at 11, 14 and 18. And that's the system that will actually emerge. And yesterday, the Times is... yesterday, Euan Blair you mentioned, but even more important, James Dyson, our greatest inventor and creator of wonderful inventions, said that he also wants them scrapped because they're not creative. As your children are taking them, you know, they're not creative or imaginative. They just have to remember what they've learned in the last 11 years.
I think some of them are creative and imaginative.
There's no cultural depth there.
I think
there's no creativity there or imagination.
OK, some of them are definitely. You know, my Jack's doing drama and he's doing art, and certainly they are creative and inventive. But I absolutely agree that some of those other subjects certainly don't feel like that. I can still remember, Sian, doing my GCSEs and how much stress I was under, and that was a long, long time ago, and it hasn't changed. And, of course, for a lot of children who've been through the pandemic, my Sam last year, in the end, didn't actually end up taking his GCSEs. He was quite disappointed he didn't get a chance to do that. They were awarded grades based on assessment. For the students taking them this year, they have missed an awful lot of work, and yet they are still having to sit these exams. Let Sian defend that first, Lord Baker, if we may.
Well, yes, I mean, you're right. I mean, this cohort of children haven't sat exams for 3 years. This is the first big test of what they can do. And many, many children want that chance to prove what they can do. And Lord Baker says children don't leave school at 16. That is true. But at 16, children are making really important choices. Only about a third of children stay in their schools after the age of 16. They move to other schools. They need to know, they need objective, hard evidence. What are they good at? What A-level subjects should they choose? Which are the subjects they're going to excel in? Like my A-levels, I was really undecided, should I do arts or sciences at A-levels? My GCSE performance just made up my mind for me. You know, my science results were not that good. My arts results were much, much better. And so I did arts at A-level. And you need that objective evidence at 16. And as for the point that they're stressful, you know, life is stressful. Children are going to have to sit exams in university, if they go to university, and many, many children now go to university. If they get to university and they've never sat an exam, or the first exams they've sat are their A-levels, that's disastrous for them. That is a huge... That's a huge test.
Could I just say one thing? Universities are slowly abandoning exams. My son at Cambridge last year didn't sit an exam. He did an open book exam at his home on his own computer, and he said it was brilliant, and he got a first.
Was that because of the pandemic, though?
What?
Was that because of the pandemic?
Yes, and many universities are now going to have those sorts of exams. They're called open book exams. Now, you said your son did art and drama. He's in a minority. Art and drama's dropped by 40% as a result of the Michael Gove curriculum, and technology has virtually disappeared totally from 11 to 16-year-old schools. Have any of your children actually made things with their hands, used machinery, used tools? No, they haven't. We're the only country in Europe that doesn't do this. We're the only country in Europe that doesn't teach technical education below 11 and 16. It's the Gove curriculum, and it must be abandoned. And that will go, and GCSEs will go with it.
Lord Baker, what would you replace the GCSEs with?
With
because as Sian says,
assessment.
there is a natural point, isn't there, between GCSEs and sixth form, and a lot of children do need something to enable them to get access to a different school or a different college.
Look, you didn't live, and nor did I, live in education from 4 to 18. And so 16 is not a particularly important staging point. You get continuous assessment at 11, 14 and 16. The private sector has got it right. Children should change at 14 because by that time they can decide what their interests are. And that's why I started university technical colleges at 47. And these teach youngsters from 14 to 18. They are the most successful schools in the country. 55% go to university with STEM subjects, 30% become apprentices. These are the sorts of colleges we ought to have. If I was creating the national curriculum today, I would now stop it at 14, like Austria, which has got the lowest level of youth unemployment in Europe. And they have specialist colleges at 14 in business studies, in data skills.
Okay.
You see, it really... Have your children learnt anything at schools with data skills, really serious data skills? I don't think they have, you'll find.
I tell you
your
what,
children
Lord Baker,
use their phones for social matters, not for educational matters.
The issue, Sian, I think, is that our children are caught up in the legacy of this pandemic. So we're seeing everything through that particular filter. Do you think, when you do your reporting on education, that these ideas are gaining traction?
I think they are gaining traction, not with the government, but I think they are gaining traction among some schools. Private schools, interestingly, are really keen on this. And I'm worried about that because this whole idea of continuous assessment or teachers giving children their own grades, that led to huge grade inflation during the pandemic.
And the widening of the gap between private and state-educated children.
Is enormous.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some private schools
I'm afraid.
gave 4 times, this is an extraordinary statistic, 4 times more A stars at A level than their youngsters had got before the pandemic. So how on earth can you justify that? And the problem with continuous assessment is it is not an objective, independent national system. Some teachers will be really generous, some teachers will not. So you haven't got kids on a level playing field. At the moment, state school kids are making massive inroads in getting into our top universities. They are taking places at Oxford and Cambridge. Private schools don't like that. And they're doing it on the basis of the system that we have. Now, if private schools can undo that system, Sean. That's very nice for private schools.
Hang on just a moment, Sean. The editor of The Times, an associated paper of yours, the editors come out against GCSEs and wants them abolished.
Well, we don't agree.
And the report that The Times has set up under Rachel Sylvester's report next June will certainly come out with the recommendation they'll be abolished.
That's the great
thing. The Guardian also wants the editor wants them abolished.
Interesting.
The volume now is enormous.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to replace it with something sensible, which is rigorous. But what I've found at 14 with our schools, at 14, youngsters really know what their interests are. And they can make very good decisions.
Yes, we have to leave it there, unfortunately, partly because anybody who is about to take a GCSE has probably got to get to school.
The bus is ready to go.
Lord Baker, thank you very much indeed. Sian Griffiths.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for joining
both.
I'm glad you're sharing the problem.
Yeah,
you're good.
Oh, we're living the problem. Don't worry about that. Good luck to anyone sitting their GCSEs at the moment as well. We feel your pain.
Yeah.